and welcome to the session on central themes and philosophical concerns of medieval philosophy. The relation between faith and reason. The Middle Ages stretched across several centuries and it witnessed many great philosophical ideas. There were a number of philosophers and theologians who contributed to the development of medieval philosophy. The influences, ideas and philosophical positions of these great thinkers differed from one to another. However, when we closely analyze the intellectual discussions and writings of the medieval period, we can see that some themes and philosophical concerns continued throughout this period. We can see these themes and arguments as recurring in the works and thoughts of all the major medieval theologians or thinkers. This unit will analyze those central themes in detail. Thinkers of medieval philosophy dealt with a number of themes that were both philosophical and theological in nature. Some of the major themes and concerns included the following: the relation between faith and reason, the existence of God, the problem of universals, free will versus predetermination, problem of evil. We will deal with these themes in more detail in the coming units when we study the life and works of the major medieval philosophers. Faith versus reason. As we have already seen, dominance of theology in philosophical discussion was one of the chief characteristics of medieval philosophy. The question that troubled many medieval thinkers was whether important religion and philosophical beliefs are grounded in faith or in reason or a mixture of both. These philosophers and theologians used reason to do three things. Firstly, they tried to support their belief in God using reason. Secondly, they tried to prove their belief in God using reason. Thirdly, and most importantly, they tried to develop a unified theory of all knowledge, divine and human, using reason. Many scholars agree that the relation between faith and reason was perhaps the greatest concern of medieval philosophers. For ancient philosophers, the problem of reconciling reason with faith did not matter much. This concern started with the advent and spread of Christianity. To be more precise, this problem was explicitly formulated in the 2nd century with the writings of the Church Fathers. The early philosophers were divided on this issue. The faith only position. Some early church theologians proposed the faith only position. They rejected secular learning and the use of reason altogether. This position is also called fideism because of its exclusive preference for faith. They maintain the view that reason obstructs the discovery of truth. According to them, reason not only a dead end in the search for truth, but also it is misleading. Proponents of this position argued that faith is independent of reason. Reason and faith are hostile to each other. Faith has a superior position when it comes to arriving at particular truths. One of the major proponents of the faith only position was an early Christian author named Tertullian, who lived in the late 2nd and early 3rd centuries. He is considered as the first Christian author who produced an extensive body of Christian literature in Latin. According to him, there is no place for reason in Christianity. His motto was, "I believe because it is absurd." He did not consider philosophy as a source of truth. Instead, he considered philosophy as a source of heresy. Attempts to combine faith and reason. But there were other philosophers who held a view contrary to the faith only position. They took a positive view of reason and philosophy. They believed that reason can support to demonstrate some religious truths that we also know through faith. The first major thinker who attempted to reconcile faith and reason was St. Augustine of Hippo. He was a strong defender of Christian faith and responded to the pagan allegations against Christianity. It can be said that he set the parameters for the future debates on the issue of faith versus reason. His views on the issue can be summarized as follows. The intellectual inquiry into the faith should be understood as faith-seeking understanding. In his famous work titled On Christian Doctrine, he argued that Christian theologians should use secular learning while interpreting the scriptures and to illuminate the Christian faith. However, one can truly understand the world and the place of humans in this world only through Christian faith. Christian doctrines complete, illuminate and transform secular learning by offering answers to some of the most important questions in human life. Any idea in secular learning that is against Christian doctrine is false and should be rejected. But ideas that are in line with Christian faith can be used provided that it is done in the context of faith. The disagreement between philosophers who denied the value of reason and those advocated its use can be seen throughout the medieval period. By 11th and 12th centuries, the focus of this debate shifted to the use of logic in the understanding of scriptures. Thinkers such as Peter Damian rejected the use of logic, while Peter Abelard argued in favor of it. Abelard argued that since Christian authorities contradict each other, Christian faith requires the use of logic. St. Anselm of Canterbury adopted a moderate position and argued for a measured use of logic. Augustine's influence can be found in the ideas of Anselm, where he argues that the understanding begins with faith, but is achieved when it is expressed in logical form. The Islamic and Jewish thinkers of the medieval period were also concerned with the relation between faith and reason. Averroes was the major philosopher who proposed controversial ideas on the topic. He argued that knowledge is based on demonstrative reasoning, and hence the understanding of scriptures can never reach the level of knowledge. Theology, according to him, does not give knowledge and it should be subordinated to philosophy. These ideas were later criticized by Thomas Aquinas and Bonaventure. Aquinas argued that philosophy is the handmaiden of theology. Existence of God and the problem of evil. Another concern that interested the philosophers of Middle Ages was the existence of God. Many medieval philosophers put forward an argument that though we can believe in God based on faith alone, there are proofs based on reason to show the existence of God. Medieval theologians and philosophers were keen to prove the existence of God because it was the foundation stone for Christian faith. There were some arguments from the ancient period which tried to prove the existence of God, but it was the medieval thinkers who developed these arguments with sophistication. We can see that medieval arguments on the existence of God fall under two categories: arguments that were based on the analysis of concepts, arguments that were based on experience. The most famous argument of the first category was proposed by St. Anselm of Canterbury. In his famous work titled Proslogion, he put forward his much celebrated argument for the existence of God. This argument came to be known later as the ontological argument. Later, John Duns Scotus put forward his version of the ontological argument. Another medieval philosopher who took the theme of God's existence was Thomas Aquinas. In his masterpiece titled Summa Theologica, he proposed 5 ways to prove the existence of God. We will learn more about the arguments of Aquinas, Anselm and Scotus in separate units that deal with their works and philosophy. It should be noted that both these arguments were not based on experience or observation. Instead, they were derived by purely logical means. This was a common feature of medieval philosophy. Truth can be of two types: a priori truths and a posteriori truths. A posteriori truths are derived from a direct experience of the material world, but a priori truths are prior to experience. Throughout the Middle Ages, philosophers were more interested in a priori truths. Both Augustine and Anselm held the view that The truth about God was the most important truth and that it was a priori. Their arguments for the existence of God presented proofs based on logic alone. The problem of evil. Another related theme of medieval philosophy was the problem of evil. This generally refers to the question of how to reconcile the existence of evil with the existence of God. Medieval theologians had developed a notion of God by giving him certain attributes. According to this notion, God was all powerful, omnipotent, all knowing, omniscient, all present, omnipresent, and all good, omnibenevolent. Moreover, he is eternal and has a foreknowledge of the future events. These traditional attributes of God presented the medieval philosopher with a major problem, that is, the problem of evil. The following questions troubled early medieval philosophers and theologians. How to understand the presence of evil in the world? There were lots of suffering in the world and it was a type of evil. If God is good and is in control of everything, then how can evil exist? How can we resolve the problem of God's power and goodness on one side and the presence of evil on the other side? Can God's goodness coexist with evil? Does it mean that the evil happened with God's knowledge? Or is God indirectly responsible for evil? Attempts were made to resolve these questions in a variety of ways. St. Augustine used the notion of free will to resolve the question of evil. He argued that God is both good and just. God's goodness means that he does no evil. At the same time, God's justness means that he rewards good and punishes evil. So, God indeed causes some suffering through punishment. However, God is not the cause of evil actions themselves. Augustine further argued that the reason for evil is the free will of humans. Thus, Augustine turned the blame from God and directed it towards human deeds. In other words, by exercising free will, human beings willfully perform evil deeds. The problem of universals. Yet another chief concern taken up by medieval philosophers was the problem of universals. Before looking at how medieval philosophers dealt with this concern, let us first try to understand what exactly the problem of universals was. It is commonly defined as the problem of whether concepts, for example, greenness and largeness, can exist independent of human thought. Let us try to understand it through an example. There is a tree in front of you. It is green and it is large. So, we can say that greenness and largeness are the attributes of that particular tree. But there are many other things in the universe which are green and large. So, those objects share the more universal attributes of greenness and largeness. Such attributes, qualities or relations which are shared by two or more entities are called universals. This leads to two major questions. Do universals exist independently of human thought? That is to say, do they exist in the form of an external reality? Or are universals a product of human mind? This problem is known as the problem of universals. If we look at the history of Western philosophy, we can see that it was one of the perennial problems discussed by philosophers of all periods and ages. The medieval philosophers tried to tackle this issue through their writings, and their positions can be divided into three broader positions. Those positions were realism, nominalism, conceptualism. Realism. According to the realistic school of philosophy, universals are real. They exist independent of human thoughts. That means, even if there are no thoughts or minds, the universals would still exist. There were two types of realism, Platonic realism and Aristotelian realism. Platonic realism held the view that universals are real entities and they exist independent of particulars. Aristotelian realism also agreed that universals are real entities, but it argued that their existence is dependent of the particulars that represent them. Plato and Aristotle were the two major realists of the ancient period. Nominalism. The nominalists argued that all that is real is particular. Thus, they agreed that individuals or particulars exist, but they did not agree that universals are real. According to them, universals exist only as entities or beings. The word nominalism was originated from the Latin word nomen, which meant name. To the nominalists, universals were just words because the entities shared names in common. Conceptualism. Conceptualism was middle way between nominalism and realism. This school of thought argued that there is something in common among individuals or entities of the same kind. However, the conceptualists argued that this is not a real entity existing independent of human mind, rather it is a concept in the mind. Free will versus predetermination or predestination. The question of free will versus predestination or predetermination was not only a chief theme of medieval philosophy, but a prominent issue of a debate of all times among Christian theologians of the Western world. Free will can be simply defined as the ability of human beings to make choices without any external constraints. Predetermination, on the other hand, meant that everything happening in the world is already determined in advance. According to medieval theology, God was omniscient and omnipotent. If that is true, then everything that happens in the world is planned by God in advance and they happen with the foreknowledge of God. Thus, we can see that the concept of free will is not compatible with the concept of predetermination. The problem of free will versus predestination can be summarized as follows. If everything happens according to predestination, then God knows that X will do an action in a future time. That means X cannot fail to do that action. Then it means that X does not have any free will, but do things according to God's predestination. If there is no free will, then there is no question of vices and virtues. Moreover, even vices have to be then understood as God's action. In other words, if we argue that everything happens according to predestination and that humans do not have free will, then there is no point in praying. This problem is also known in philosophy as the paradox of free will. Medieval philosophers attempted to resolve this incompatibility between human free will and divine foreknowledge by proposing various arguments. Boethius was one of the prominent thinkers who tried to offer a solution to this problem by introducing two concepts, namely the simple necessity and conditional necessity. St. Augustine of Hippo also developed his theory of free will to explain the presence of evil in the world. More about these arguments will be discussed in the coming units. Other major themes of medieval philosophy. Apart from the already discussed ones, there were a number of other philosophical themes that run through medieval period, although they are of less importance. Some such themes and concerns were the problem of religious language. Another theme, even though it was not as important as the already mentioned ones, was the problem of religious language. The medieval philosophers were concerned whether it is possible to say anything meaningful about God in human language. Humans describe God using words such as powerful and good, but even these descriptions are limited by what humans understand as power and goodness. In our words, our descriptions of God are tainted and limited by our experiences. The thinkers of the medieval period asked if it was possible to reinterpret our descriptions about God in special ways. Though there were many responses to this problem, the most noted one came from Pseudo Dionysius. He introduced the notion of positive and negative language. According to him, God should not be described as what he is, but should be described as what he is not. This, he argued, will bring us closer to a better description of God. The question of knowledge or how we know. The problem of how we know was yet another recurrent theme in medieval history. The origins of this problem can be traced back to Plato, who argued that we cannot be taught because the objects of our knowledge are immaterial ideas. According to Plato, learning is the development of ideas buried deep in the soul. He put forward the doctrine of recollection or anamnesis, which held that humans are born possessing all knowledge from a previous life. According to this doctrine, when we learn something, we are actually recollecting it. Thus, we can see that Plato believed in the pre-existence of the soul. This theme was taken up by St. Augustine during the medieval period. He modified the doctrine introduced by Plato because as a Christian, Augustine did not accept the pre-existence of the soul. So, Augustine argued that Christ is the teacher who places ideas in our memory, and we encounter these ideas by being reminded of them through language. This proposition was called the doctrine of divine illumination, which became a major point of debate among Augustinians and Aristotelians in the later medieval period. Aquinas and Scotus argued against Augustine's idea of divine illumination. The medieval philosophers dealt with other themes and concerns which were derived from other branches of philosophy such as ethics, metaphysics, philosophy of mind and logic. Many of such concerns raised during the medieval period continued to be points of discussions in the later centuries. Let me summarize the session. Even though there were several philosophers and several philosophical writings during the medieval period, some themes and concerns were repeatedly raised and discussed. Some of such themes were concerned with metaphysics and logic, while most of them were theological. The first recurrent concern of most of the medieval philosophers was the relation between faith and reason. Some philosophers embraced the faith-only position by saying that reason has no place in matters of faith. But philosophers such as Augustine and Anselm argued that reason can be used in support of religious matters. The second recurrent theme of medieval philosophy was the problem of human free will versus divine predetermination. The existence of God was yet another important concern for many medieval philosophers. A related problem was the presence of evil. The notion of free will was offered as a solution to answer the question, how can there be evil if God is all powerful and is in control of everything? Another important concern of medieval philosophers was the problem of universals. Realism, nominalism and conceptualism were the major responses to the question of whether universals exist independent of human thoughts. Hope that you will try to answer the questions given here. How did medieval philosophers use reason in the context of matters related to religion and faith? What was the faith-only position in the issue of faith versus reason? What were the major medieval positions on the issue of faith of matters related to faith versus reason? What were the major views of St. Augustine of Hippo on the issue of faith versus reason? What were the major attempts by medieval philosophers to prove the existence of God? What was the basis of the philosophical concern related to the presence and existence of evil? How did St. Augustine of Hippo resolve the question of evil using the concept of free will? What were the realist, nominalist and conceptualist response to the problem of universals? Explain the difference between Plato's doctrine of recollection and Augustine's doctrine of divine illumination. Here are a few reference books for your reading. The Routledge History of Philosophy, Volume 3, The Middle Ages, edited by John Marenbun, Routledge, London in 1998. Medieval Philosophy by Paul Vincent Spade, The Oxford Illustrated History of Philosophy, edited by Anthony Kenny, Oxford University Press, Oxford in 1994. Medieval Philosophy by Scott MacDonald and Norman Kretschmann, Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy, edited by E. Craig, Routledge, London in 1998. Medieval Philosophy from 500 to 1500 CE, edited by Brian Duignan, Britannica Educational Publishing, New York in 2011. A Companion to Philosophy in the Middle Ages, edited by George J. E. Garcia and Timothy B. Noon, Blackwell Publishing, Berlin in 2002. Medieval Philosophy, A Beginner's Guide by Sharon Cale M. One World Publications, London in 2008. Thank you for watching this program. We can meet again with another topic. Have a nice day.